Okay, we have a lot to cover, so let's just jump right in. Hello friends, my name is Lauren and welcome back to my channel. I have not done one of these videos in a while. I believe it's been over a year, maybe over 2 years since I've done my last one, but I am doing another unhaul video. By donating them, hopefully someone else will be able to enjoy them a lot more than myself. And besides, I already have a lot of other books I want to read, and so it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense for these books to be continuing to sit on my shelf. That being said, I will probably be donating all of these books, and so I will link the foundation down below to where I will be donating them to. So yeah, with this unhaul, we have 40 books, or actually more specifically 38. I've done 2 passes over my bookshelf just trying to see what I'm interested in, but I think I've picked all of the books I will be unhauling, and so I'm pretty excited to share them all with you guys. So I have a couple of categories I will be talking about, and if you want to jump to like a certain style of unhaul book, I guess, click the timestamps in the description. But we have books I have not read or I've started but never finished. I have books I've read and didn't like. I have books I've read and kind of liked, books I've read that I really liked, and then poetry books, because I had a poetry phase in like grade 10. So without further ado, let's get started. So in no particular order, I'm going to be starting off with the books I have not yet read or I've started, never finished, and I have no plans on actually reading them anytime in the near future. Book number 1 being All Your Twisted Secrets. This book actually came out earlier this year and I was so excited to read it. The synopsis sounded so good, and I'm so sad at how badly written this book was. I'm sorry, maybe that's my own opinion, but I really did not like it. You can see my bookmark here. I currently am on page 157, so I did read a lot of this book, I would say. It's not like I read 30 pages and gave up, but I really did not like the writing style, and this is a mystery book, and so the reason I didn't like it was because it felt like I was waiting too long with nothing happening, and it was all kind of coming towards the end, but I didn't want to wait all the way to the end because I was bored in the middle, so hence I will be unhauling All of Your Twisted Secrets. I'm sorry. Next, I will be unhauling this book called Need. I got this at a sale, as you can tell, for $6 a few years ago. It sounded interesting. I just don't really have any desire to read it anymore. I think what happens is I get a book and then I end up picking something else up and then it just sits there. I no longer want to read it, and then here we are. So definitely going future, I'm gonna try to be a lot more careful as to what I'm buying versus can look at online through my library or something like that. But I will be unhauling this. Nothing more about it. Next up, I have this book called The Call of the Wild White Fang and to Build a Fire. I believe this was a gift. I don't know what it's about, but I have no desire to really read it as well, so I'm just gonna move on. Next, we have these 3 mystery books, one by James Patterson and these 3 by Agatha Christie. I don't really have any desire to read them. I'm typically more of a young adult person, so I'm just going to skip on past these ones, and hopefully someone else will enjoy a good old mystery. I don't really like mystery all that much. I more enjoy like a YA mystery, but hopefully one day I can get more into the adult genre. I also have this one by James Patterson. Next up, we have this one called Regenesis, I think is the name of this book. It is a really gorgeous book. It is the 2nd book in a duology, I believe, but I read the 1st book. I just don't have any desire to read the 2nd book, so hence money not well spent. Next, I met this author at an Indigo event, and they were really nice at the time. I thought I was gonna read their book. It's been a number of years now, and I still have not. I don't really remember all that much about what this book is about, and so for that reason, I think that's a good indication as to me unhauling it. But he was very nice, very polite, and I'm sure this book will be enjoyed by someone else. Next up is a book I tried to read so many times. I literally think I've tried to read it like 3 or 4 times and just could never get to the ending, but it sounds so good, and I did enjoy my time reading it for part of the way, but it is The Rule of 3. I believe this is a trilogy, and I just couldn't get through it for some reason. Every single time I got close to the end, I would put it down, forget everything, and then have to re-pick it back up, and I have really no desire to try to get to the end once again. Next up is a book called Silent Alarm, like a common theme. I don't know really what it's about. I got it during the same sale. I got Need, and here we are. I don't really want to read it. So note to self, don't buy things that you know you're probably not going to read for a while. Next up, we have this book called Invitation to the Game. It kind of reminded me of Divergent and the concept of it. It's really short. I plan on reading it. A big surprise, I have not read it, and I have no desire to anyways. I'm kind of a little bit getting out of dystopian in a slight way. Definitely more of a fantasy person now, so hence I will be passing this book off to a better home. Next up, we have the 3rd book in a trilogy called Graduation Day. I read the first 2 books, enjoyed them. This was like a good 5 or 4 years ago, And then I got the third book. I think I started it but never finished it, and I have no desire to read the other books again. I believe this is also kind of a dystopian novel as well, and like I said, I'm slowly getting out of that category just a little bit, so I don't really have any desire to read the other books, but I do remember enjoying it. I just never really finished the third book. My last couple of picks might also be a little bit of some favorites from people, but I am unhauling the Raven Boys. I planned to participate in the Raven Boy readathon that someone was hosting, I can't remember when, so I got both of these books and I ended up not participating in it, and now I have no desire to read those books, and I've heard very mixed reviews from both of these books, and so I don't think I'm really gonna have any interest in reading them, so hence hopefully I can pass these off to a better home. And finally, my last one for this category, probably yet again another controversial opinion, or like, not controversial because I haven't even read it, but probably a favorite of many. It is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This book was recommended to me years ago. It was recommended to me years ago. I bought it, I was so excited to read it, and then I just never did. So here we are. I know this is a favorite of many, and honestly, I feel like I would enjoy it if I read it. I just have no desire to, and other things I would rather read first, so hence I will be passing this one off. Next, I will be talking about the books that I have read but did not like, and so why would I keep the books that I don't like? Starting off with probably, again, yet another favorite, being To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I think the Netflix adaptation of this series is way better than the books. I've read the first and second one. The second one was better than the first one, but the movies were way better, so I would just recommend consuming this book for the movie. This book basically follows Laura Jean, and when she has a crush so big, she writes them a letter. She just never ends up sending the letters, and so she ends up having 5 major crushes over her life, each of which she has written some deeply lovey-dovey letter to, just keeps in her room though. However, one day she finds out that these letters have been sent out to each of the boys, and hence To All the Boys I've Loved Before now starts. The concept of this book sounded really, really good. However, I really did not like some of the characters in this book and just really how the story happened. I do have a full in-depth review on this book if you want to check it out up here. I just did not really like it, and so I'm hoping someone else might like it because I know it is a favorite of many, so for that reason I will be unhauling it. Next is a book I could talk about for hours, why I don't like it, but it is The Love Interest, and I read this book 5 or so years ago, I believe, and loved it, so I was like, I'm gonna reread it, I think last year? I kind of forget when I read this last, but oh my god, now as a more critical reader, definitely a disappointment for sure. This book has very big tropes and it's just very not very good. So hence for that reason I will be unhauling this book. I hope someone else finds it enjoyable because I know other people have, but the writing and the ending and just the whole story itself was really not something for me. I think the concept sounds really, really cool, but the way the final result looks could have been a lot better, so hence for that reason I will be unhauling this book. And next up is a book that would make Jessie the reader very, very sad, but I am going to be unhauling Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I read this book and I think last year, and I really, really, really wanted to like it, but unfortunately I didn't. I believe I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars or 2.5 out of 5 stars, not really sure on that, but it just wasn't for me, and honestly that makes me so sad because so many people love this book, and maybe one day in the future I'll try again, but it just wasn't something for me. Maybe I'll just watch the movie instead. I'm not really sure, but I really hope someone else can enjoy this book because I know it's a favorite of so many people. Oh my god, this whole category is just full of popular books, but I read this book a number of years ago. It just wasn't for me with the writing style, but it is A Long Way Down, and as you can kind of see with the writing, it's written, I don't really know what this is called, but more as like poetry styles. I don't really know what it's called, but it's not really my kind of thing. I only kind of like novels where it's like chapter-based books, and I'm slowly starting to get into graphic novels. I've only read a couple, but this, just the way it was written wasn't really for me, and I know the messaging in this book is really, really strong, but just because of the way it was written, I just couldn't really get into the story as much as I would have liked to. Next up is a book I had to read for my grade 12 English class, being Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, and I really wanted to like this book, and I heard so many great things about it, but for some reason I just could not get into the book, which makes me so sad because I heard so many good things about it from people. And so this book is kind of a mystery-based book, and the writing's pretty good. It just wasn't for me for some reason. But basically there are a lot of themes in this book, such as like racism and sexism and how that kind of carries on through generations, and how people's past experiences influence their present experiences, etc., etc. And it dives into each of like the main families' backgrounds really interestingly. I'm really sad that I didn't like this book, but it honestly had a pretty good concept, so I will give it that. Next up is one of my all favorite time, least favorite books, being The Barcode Tattoo. Oh my god. I was so excited to read this book because I had heard about like a concept about this book so many times just on like Instagram. And basically it's in a society where everyone has to get, you know, a barcode tattoo, and it basically talks about the faults in the system and what it actually does and how it ruins people's lives. So I thought, hello, sounds very interesting. But the way this book was done, oh my god. Slight spoiler alert for the ending. Very slight, doesn't really impact the plot at all. Everyone ends up being able to read each other's minds. I don't really know how that connects to the original concept. Spoiler over. But I did not like this book. I gave it a 1 out of 5 stars. I just hope someone else can enjoy it. And the last book in this category is one that I'm so sad I did not like. I made a full video review on it, which you can click up here, but it is The Betrothed by Kira Cass. I just watched the new cover reveal video. It is gorgeous. This book is gorgeous. It genuinely is one of the nicest book covers I've ever seen, and I had the audacity not to like it. I found the overall plot of the story kind of really went nowhere. Like, things happened, but it kind of all just stayed the same throughout the story, and I didn't really feel connected to any of the characters specifically. Like I said, I do have a full video talking about the book, so definitely check that out for more of my thoughts. But just for that reason, I don't think I will be continuing on with this duology. I did not like this book, and I don't think with that I would like the second book either. But look how pretty this cover is. I really hope someone else enjoys this book. Just unfortunately, it's not going to be me. Next up, for the third category, I'm going to be talking about books that I read, kind of liked, just have no desire to read again. Probably going to go through this category pretty quickly since I don't have too much to talk about for these books since I read them all a pretty long time ago. However, number 1 being Otherworld. I believe this was pretty popular a few years ago. I enjoyed my time reading it, nothing all that special, and for that reason I will be unhauling it as I don't really have any desire to read the next books in the series or this book again. The next book is P.S. I Still Love You. This is obviously the second book in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy, and I did enjoy this book more than the first one. However, I loved the movie so much more, and so for that reason I have no desire to read these books again. I know they're favorites of many, but I would much rather just rewatch the movie than reread the book. Next up, we have a book I actually did enjoy a little bit 5 or 6 years ago, a long time ago. I just know that I won't like it if I read it again, but it is called Alive, and I honestly don't remember all that much about it. I believe it is a dystopian sci-fi, and I enjoyed it at the time. I just know in my soul it won't be something I enjoy rereading. Next up is a book that I had to read for my grade 10 English class, which I actually ended up really hating because I read it over and over to get more notes for my English class. But it is Ender's Game, and the book itself was pretty good. There was something in the ending that was a little surprising, but like I said, I have too many bad essay book club memories with this book, so I will be unhauling it for that reason. Next up, we have We All Fall Down by Eric Walters. This book is basically the perspective of a child who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time during 9/11. He ends up being trapped with his father in one of the twin towers as it is collapsing, and so it definitely is a very intense story in terms of, you know, obviously it's a very big historic event. However, it wasn't all that impactful to me just because of who the story was following and the way it was written. I believe I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars when I read it, so actually not that bad, just nothing I would really reread again or praise on and on about. And lastly is a book I did remember liking a number of years ago, being All the Wrong Questions, Who Could This Be at This Hour? And this is by Lemony Snicket. I think I enjoyed it a fair amount when I was a little bit younger, but I don't really have any real desire to reread this. I think if I were to read something else, it would be the School for Unfortunate Events series, not this series. Wasn't fully involved with this one. We are now jumping into the next category of books that I actually have read. However, I would recommend them if they sound of anything interest to you. They're just personally not something I'm going to reread, but I do have respect for them. Number 1 being End of Days by Eric Walters. I talked about the sequel that I just did not read, and the reason I actually read this book in the first place was because it was my ex-boyfriend's favorite book, and so obviously I don't really have any purpose to keep this book any longer, but I liked it at the time. It was a good book, and it is a sci-fi, I believe, basically talking about how we need to repopulate a different planet as Earth is dying, and we follow this scientist, I believe, and this kid, I think. Don't really remember, but it was a good book, I'll give it that. Next up, we have Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. This book basically, if I remember correctly, I read it many years ago, it's basically about a girl who has the same day over and over again, and she doesn't know how to stop the cycle. And so I believe it takes place over a week, if I remember correctly. I honestly read this so long ago, but I really enjoyed my time reading it. I remember really liking the ending, and so for that reason, I really liked this book. I just know that if I were to reread it, it's probably not going to be something I would enjoy now. Next up is a book that probably majority of people know, but it is 13 Reasons Why. If you did not know, the Netflix series is actually based on this book here, or at least the first season is. I know this book, or like the TV show, gets a lot of hate for kind of romanticizing a very serious topic. At the time when I read this book, the series had not yet come out, or I didn't have Netflix. I just didn't even know it was a series, even though it says it right on the cover. Don't know how I missed that. But I enjoyed the book at the time. I thought it was a very interesting concept. I didn't think anything negative of it. Over now, I can definitely understand why people have their concerns. And so just for that reason, I don't really think I need a book with such heavy messaging in a time where we already have a lot of heavy things going on in our real lives. But I do remember liking this book, just not something I would really pick up again. Next up is a book that I had to read for grade 11 English. As you can tell, I don't like reading books for school, but it is The Kite Runner, and I actually really liked this book. It is definitely something I would not normally read, and so hence I picked it to try to read out of my comfort zone almost. And it's a very heavy book, but it's really well written. We basically follow these two boys kind of over the span of like their entire life, and it's really good. So if you have the chance to read this for an English class, I would recommend it. I believe it's just an adult fiction story. I don't really know what genre it is, but it is really good. We basically follow these boys in Afghanistan, and one of them ends up moving to the United States, and it's a very interesting story of their friendship and how everyone turns out in life and how their experiences make them who they are. It's very interesting, and I really enjoyed my time reading this book, as you can probably tell. Next is a book that I really enjoyed, just have no real desire to reread again. It is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. I annotated this book for fun. I really enjoyed it. I think it talks about a whole lot of good themes in this book, especially in this day and age. It talks about police brutality, family relations, and a lot of stuff that was very interesting to read about, especially as someone who does not deal with racism. I think from what I understand, a really good book that describes a whole lot of issues really well. It also talks about like revolution and protest and some really strong messages as well. And I thought this book was just really good, very impactful. The writing was really good. I just don't really have any necessary drive to reread it, as I think reading it once was just good for me. But I would really recommend it if you have yet to read The Hate U Give. It is such a good book. The writing is really good, and you'll also get some laughs throughout the book too, with all of the family relations happening in it. And so for that reason, I really liked this book. I just will not be rereading it anytime soon. And the last book for this category is one that I really liked a long time ago. I just, like I said, don't have any desire to read it again, which is Dead Girls Society. Basically, it's like a mystery kind of book, and these 5 or 6 girls, I believe, get called to start doing this competition thing, and the more challenges they do, the higher the stakes are for themselves. And as you can probably tell, some of the girls end up with this competition, and so it's meant to be a very lighthearted thing, a way for the main character to have fun, but then it ends up turning her life around, being very serious, and it's a cool mystery. I enjoyed it. Don't remember all that much else as to what happens, but it was really good at the time. Lastly, I will be talking about poetry, which only has 2 books in this whole category, as I only had a very short poetry phase. But the first one I have is Get Lit Rising. Basically, this is a bunch of poems put together by some organization or group, and I read some of the stories. I liked some of the poems, just I'm not interested in poetry anymore. And then the next book I have is called Take Me With You, another poetry book. Don't really have any desire to read this either, so hence I will be unhauling both of these, hopefully to someone else who likes poetry. Oh my god, I just talked for so long, my throat is dying. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I don't tend to do unhauls often, but I'm really hoping that this unhaul specifically for my end of year unhaul will kind of help me make better buying decisions in the future, especially as this kind of shows that when I buy things, if I don't read them right away, I tend to lose interest in them, as you probably got from a lot from the beginning category. But regardless, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if any of these books are a mistake to get rid of, please let me know with the comment section down below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Anyways, I will see you all very soon in my next video. Before we go, I want to tease a little fact of something I am doing in December. We're gonna have some cool people on my channel, some fun books to talk about, and some other fun videos that are just super creative, and I'm very excited to share with you guys, so definitely stay tuned for that. I will be posting a lot in the month of December, and with that though, I will be seeing you guys in the next video. So until then, bye.